Hi folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. I'm here with Russ Diddy today, and I want to tell you all about something that kind of blows my mind. I had planned to do a report telling you all about the very specific way that I catch bass, and if you do the same thing on the Grass River, one of our many tributaries, you will catch bass too. And I had it all planned. I use these very small lures, and my technique is such, and smallmouth really enjoy eating small things like a small crayfish or something in the water. So you don't need big lures. However, because I fished with Rust just a day ago for smallmouth bass in the Racket River, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but he blew my mind away because he uses a long single worm, Texas rigged, and throws it out and catches smallmouth with that like I can't even describe the number of fish that you catch. And it blows everything that I want to tell people away. So talk about that, Rust.
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is every dog has its day. I can't tell you how many times it's the opposite. I go out with you and we're fishing for targeting bass, and you just catch them all, and I sit back there watching and switching lures all day long. I had no intention. Really, I didn't have any, not so much no intention, but I really had no idea what might work. But I brought everything in my bag, and a day or two before, I had really effective, I caught a lot of fish wading in the Racket River, throwing a chartreuse paddletail. And it's one that I've caught a ton of bass on. And I started, if you remember, yesterday. Was that
a Senko or was that?
No, it wasn't a worm. It was the paddletail.
Yeah,
it was a
right,
Zoom paddletail.
Yeah, you started.
It was a Z-Man paddletail.
Yeah, that you've done really well in the past.
I've done amazing, and I actually had done really well earlier, just a few days before with that, and I didn't catch a thing on that. After 15 or 20 minutes, I had 0 bites. And I look in my bag, and there was a bag of worms. And I thought, well, worms have worked elsewhere. Let's see what happens today. And I rigged up a worm, and it was a purple worm. And I had 2 purple worms left out of many. I had a whole bunch of worms down there, and 2 of them were purple. So I grabbed a purple one. Bang, all of a sudden, fish. Bang, fish. Bang, fish. They tore that worm up. I put my second purple one on. Bang, fish. And it happened over and over.
You were way getting more strikes than me.
I was as surprised as you were, but it was, it was thrilling.
And those worms aren't what people use for smallmouth. That's what you use for largemouth, and I use for largemouth. And the whole technique we use for largemouth is different. But you cast those out, and you don't let that worm just go down and wait for the bass to come and suck it in and feel the twitch. You start it in motion as soon as you cast.
If it lands near a smallmouth, on this particular day the smallmouth would hit it. But if it doesn't, within just a second or two, I start jerking it back. And if you jerk the worm, it just really darts and jumps and falls and really has a very attractive retrieve. And many fish will come and attack it during the retrieve, and it just wasn't. By the way, it wasn't just the purple, because then I switched to, because I didn't switch. I ran out of purple worms, and I was thinking, oh man, there goes my day. But no, I put a green with the chartreuse little tip on it, and the fish were just as aggressive on that. But that didn't work all day long, because you started catching them in the little channel. And
we got to talk about that channel, because there's a key to that channel that's important. It's a channel of water that comes pouring out of a dam. It a tremendous amount of current in that channel. And as we would go up it, we used the trolling motor going up it, and we were catching a lot of smallmouth bass. This was amazing, because there was a certain technique we had to use that worked, and it involves in reading the current. And the only way that it would really seem to be effective was we cast up next to the shoreline as we'd be moving, and you'd have to cast up far enough so that the current could allow that worm to sink down. And when we come back down with the current, we didn't have near as much luck. And so the whole key to this is reading the current and knowing how to let the current help you to catch fish.
Well, the lesson here is presentation is everything.
It sure is.
And what presentation occurred then is we figured out that going up against the current, the speed of the boat was such that it allowed the worm, the lure, to fall at a much more attractive speed than as we were floating back down, and the boat was coming with the current, and we were moving much faster. So our presentation was much different, and it wasn't our fault. We were just at the mercy of the current, and the speed going up was correct, and the speed coming down was incorrect.
Yeah.
And the fish were all over it.
Well, there's another point that I did want to bring up that I think will amaze people that read all kinds of stuff about fishing. And when we go, you always keep the same stuff on that you use for northern pike or muskies, and that is a wire leader. And even if we're using little bitty lures, you still got that wire leader on. And I will tell everybody, trust me, it doesn't make any impact on how many strikes he gets. He catches every bit as many fish as I do using a wire leader. And you'll hear every professional bass fisherman tell you that you've got to use either fluorocarbon or something the fish can't see. And that's how you attach your lure to your line, is by using fluorocarbon leader, which is supposedly invisible to the fish. And obviously these big wire leaders are visible, and it doesn't seem to affect the fish at all.
Well, so I'll just tell you my thinking, and it's through my experience. If I'm in a place where I'm targeting and catching bass, but I know there's muskies potentially around, or I know there are pike potentially around, before, when I fished without a wire leader, on the attack, it would cut it off. It would break the line, cut right through the line. The teeth on those fish would cut right through the line, and I lost too many, and I just wasn't going to have it anymore. And I don't know. I think experience tells me I don't have any less success, but I know there are people out there that would say that that's not the case. I don't care. I'll tell you right now, I don't lose muskies and I don't lose pike when I'm aiming for bass and the other fish attack, and I catch a lot of bass. So
you sure do.
So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Well, I think we brought up some really interesting things, Rust, and that's why I've been anxious to have you on the show. Till next time, folks, this is Don Meissner and Rust Eddy with the North Country Fishing Report.